Hey guys, Marcus Catkin here from Blindside Football, back to give you my GPP picks for Week 8. Last week had some great picks, highlighted by Lamar Miller, obviously blew up, won a lot of people in their tournaments with his huge game, huge performance first half. But let's jump into this week. Few great people I got here, starting off with probably my play at quarterback, Eli Manning going up against the Saints. The Saints have allowed the second most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks this season. In fact, two of the Millie Maker teams that have won the whole Millie Maker tournament this year have been a quarterback against the Saints. This is a game that has one of the highest over-unders of the week, so there's going to be lots of scoring here, high shootout game. And in the Thursday FanDuel tournaments, Eli was owned in just 4.2% of them. And then another great thing I want to put out here, Odell Beckham obviously practicing in full this week, so he's got a healthy Odell Beckham, high-scoring game. And the Saints defense has just been horrendous against the pass. So far this year, only two quarterbacks essentially haven't thrown for multiple touchdowns or 300 yards. And that was Brandon Weeden and Jameis Winston. Matt Ryan, a third person, 295 yards passing, almost hit that 300 mark threshold. But you can see in every game this season, though, 300 yards and multiple touchdowns to everybody but Weeden and Winston. Obviously, I like to think that Eli's a little bit better than both of those guys, so I think he hits those multiple touchdowns and 300 yards passing this weekend. Next up, a guy that I mentioned last week, Brian Hoyer. I'm going to keep beating the drum on this guy. I mean, in the last 4 weeks, the difference between him and Tom Brady, including Tom Brady's game the other night, his big game Thursday night, is just 180 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. That's it, over 4 weeks combined. Tom Brady to Brian Hoyer. A guy that on DraftKings is just $300 above minimum salary. 4 straight weeks with multiple touchdowns. This guy's getting it done, and with Arian Foster going down for the year, there's no reason why they're not going to throw the ball even more. So Brian Hoyer, another great GPP guy for this weekend at quarterback. Now let's jump into some running backs. First up, Charles Sims. Not a sexy name by any means. Doug Martin has obviously been blowing up the last few weeks, but I really like Charles Sims this week because quietly people don't realize that on DraftKings, he's hit almost 5 times value, 3 out of the last 4 weeks, even with Doug Martin doing what he's doing. 12 or more touches in the last 2 weeks. And game script is pretty much in his favor. They're road underdogs against Atlanta, so this could turn into a Charles Sims game instead of Doug Martin. And with Louis Murphy out, obviously for the season, Vincent Jackson looking like he's going to set out this one, Austin Seferian-Jenkins looking like he's going to miss this one as well, I think maybe they turn to more screen passes. Maybe we see a lot more catches from guys like Doug Martin and Charles Sims in this game. Real cheap on DraftKings, so he's another guy that I think can hit that tournament value at 5 times value. Next up, a great tournament pivot from Todd Gurley. I do like Todd Gurley this weekend, don't get me wrong, but if you're looking to pivot from him in a similar price range is Mark Ingram. This is a guy that is in a game that's in a high over-under game, one of the highest of the week. Giants defense has allowed the 7th most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Mark Ingram obviously had a huge game last week. Could have had an even bigger game if he wasn't vultured by Kyrie Robinson on those 2 early touchdowns. But this is a guy that's been getting a lot of red zone work, and I think he'll continue to do so this weekend. Again, great pivot from Todd Gurley. Next up, Darren McFadden. DraftKings just $3,800. I don't know what's going on here. He's your lead running back for Dallas. Very tough matchup against Seattle, but I think he may even be game script proof in this one because he's been their receiving back ever since Lance Dunbar went down. Now no Joseph Randle. 31 touches last week. $3,800, guys. Hard to go wrong there on DraftKings with that full PPR. Wide receivers. First up, I mentioned Eli Manning earlier, which led me to Odell Beckham, a guy that I really like for GPPs this week. We know that he has all the physical capabilities in the world, all the talent in the world. And like I said, practicing in full for the first time this week in a long time. He's fully healthy. Goes up against his Saints defense that I talked about, that they're very susceptible to the pass. And specifically should be matched up on Delvin Breaux. This is a guy that's allowing big plays this year. He's averaging almost 19 yards per reception against him. And we all know Odell Beckham. He's a guy that can put up those big plays. So I really like that Eli Manning, Odell Beckham stack. I have them in a ton of tournaments. Should be really low owned. Another guy that's going really low owned for absolutely no reason other than recency bias is DeAndre Hopkins. Just 7.2% in the FanDuel tournaments on Thursday night. Absolutely crazy. This is a guy that's been tearing it up all year. Obviously had one bad game last weekend, but that was just one game. He's moved forward. We've moved past that. And he's going up against the Tennessee Titans, who last time he played against them, 9 receptions, 238 yards, and 2 touchdowns in a monster game last year. No reason to get off DeAndre Hopkins. Again, we've seen it all this season. One bad game shouldn't drop him down to 7.2% owned. I love him at those percentage rates and what he's been doing so far this season. Next up, Alshon Jeffrey. DraftKings only has him at $6,400. This is an $8,000 player guy, and he will be back up there by the end of the season. Fully healthy right before the bye, had a great game, had the whole bye to get even more healthy and get even more ready for this game. Watch up some game film. Alshon Jeffrey, a guy that I love at $6,400 in tournaments. And then finally, probably my play of the week overall, but definitely at wide receiver, is Marvin Jones. Everybody likes Andy Dalton, and I think a lot of people are going to be doing an Andy Dalton, A.J. Green stack, but Marvin Jones is actually the receiver I want to own on the Bengals team. 20 targets over the last 2 weeks. That's 5 more than A.J. Green over that same time. And more importantly, the cornerback that should be lined up on him is Antoine Blake, who's allowed the second most receiving yards out of any quarterback this season at 489 receiving yards, and the second most receptions at 37 receptions. So he's allowing a lot of receptions for a lot of yards. Andy Dalton is a quarterback that we know that can throw the ball very well this year. I mean, it has all the makings for a great game for Marvin Jones. And if all that wasn't enough, he's got a 5-inch height advantage over Antoine Blake. So if they get in the red zone, he's going to have that size over him. I really like Marvin Jones. Really cheap on DraftKings at just $4,200. So there you have it, guys. Those are my GPP picks. Make sure to head on over to blindsidefootball.com for my cash game pick articles. And we'll catch you guys next week. Good luck.